I'm Sam Rose, and this is Commerce is Chaos, the podcast for consumer brand founders who know that building a business is messier than the highlight reel shows. Your supplier just missed their deadline, your top product is out of stock, and your competitors somehow just launched the same thing at half the price. Sound familiar? Every week, we dive into the real problems that keep founders up at night, from inventory disasters to supply chain nightmares, because surviving the chaos is what separates brands that fail from brands that scale. Ran out. I drank all mine. It's really upsetting. Spindrift has like a holiday flavor that's like cranberry something at Costco. Have you had that one?
No, I crushed the whatever blood orange and the lime.
Oh yeah, those are good. The lime's like really limey.
It
Like,
is.
I'm like salivating just thinking about it.
It is.
Yeah, the cranberry one that ends up being my seasonal favorite. It's like the pumpkin spice latte of Spindrifts, basically. It's just like they give you just enough for just a couple of months, and then the rest of the year you're thinking about it. All right. Well, welcome to Commerce Chaos. I'm so excited to talk to you about Iqbar. And we have a shared interest not only in gallery walls, but also in Kickstarter. And of course, like all good Kickstarter butterflies, you've graduated and major retailers follow: Costco, Walmart, Target. But you've got like a good balanced business from what I could see. And so I'd just love to chat about your approach to growth. And maybe we'll start with the Kickstarter story. I love a good Kickstarter story.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't even know what the state of Kickstarter is these days, but because this was back
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the time, it wasn't even that cool when there was a period where it was like really like novel and cool and kind of a different way to start a company. And I did it in December 17 through Jan 18. And by then it was like, I think there had been a whole series of like scammy campaigns, and it was so like PR wouldn't cover Kickstarter campaigns because there had been a bunch that didn't deliver. And so it wasn't even that cool when I did it, but I have no idea where it is now. But yes, that is how I decided to start it. And the basic idea there was I had no money, and I knew I was gonna raise money, right? Because you might just say, "Well, go raise money," but I wanted to justify a pretty decent valuation. I don't know, that's a relative term. I wanted to justify a $4 million valuation for a company that didn't exist and like a product that didn't exist. And that's kind of hard to do in CPG unless you have some sort of traction. And so my idea was I'll create that traction via Kickstarter, and then I'll go raise money on the back of that. So that's like a common misconception I think a lot of people have with Kickstarter is like, oh yeah, you just fund operations through your Kickstarter proceeds. And that's not at all what it was for us. And I don't think most people. It's really just a proof of concept and, semblance of product market fit.
Yeah. Well, and to the extent that you run a Kickstarter that's really successful, all of a sudden you're fundraising from your customers, which is also known as sales, which is great. Yeah. But you're so right. Like you don't, there's lots of good reasons for doing it. And I think one of the things that's been the saddest for me in the sort of like post heyday era of Kickstarter is that tool for discovery and for early customer contact and feedback it doesn't work as well anymore. And I loved using it in the way that you described. I never went for a round of venture funding after any of the brands that I ran Kickstarters for, but like they were effectively bootstrapped off of that and sales. But it's such a great tool for that and such a great way to like meet people early on and just start to understand the market.
Yeah. And so there's a couple of different ways to start a food and bev company or manufacturing any product. And another reason we used Kickstarter was I didn't want to go like some people will make a product in their kitchen and then they'll make 100 of it and then they'll make 1,000 of it and then they'll be like, okay, I need to move to a commercial kitchen, and then they'll make 5,000 of it, and eventually they'll say, cool, I can move to a actual like manufacturing facility or plant, a co-packer. And I wanted to skip those first several steps, and I just wanted to go straight to a co-packer. Like I wanted to make product on a full-fledged production line on day one. And there just are MOQs. There are minimum orders that you have to make. And that's like on the low end, call it 1,000 units, right? So that was a helpful level where I was like, okay, I need to sell 25,000 units at a time. And
Yeah.
by the way, this is an expirable product. Like, it's not like earbuds that could sit in a warehouse and I sell it down over 18 months. Like, I need a lot of demand quickly.
Yeah.
So that was the other variable, because other people have done it differently. They have done it that like slower growth way. But I just wanted to understand, like, is this a good idea? Because that was
Yeah.
the other thing. There was a chance that it just failed, and it's like, okay, that sucks, but at least I emphatically know this is a bad idea, and then I can move on.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when a CPG product fails, like, it's ultimately, like, didn't taste good, right? And, like, the packaging, right? Like, there's yes, you could misformulate something and then have that as the byproduct, or you could have, like, a totally dead production run as a really bad byproduct of that failure. But in general, it's like a higher bar, but a lower bar, because you've got to have a lot of these proof points to get the traction that you need because the MOQs are so high. On the other hand, there is, on a relative basis, still an investment, but on a relative basis, a lower investment in, um, the hard trappings of manufacturing, $150,000 in tooling, or if a part doesn't fit or it breaks, or your spot buys for the like critical transistor in the thing aren't there. Like, you kind of can get to product easier in a way. Proof of concept, like you're describing, you could do that in your kitchen. You just wanted to jump to manufacturing. And so I wonder how were you meditating about failure before you started?
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, it's almost like more of a proof of concept of you as an entrepreneur. Like,
That's fucking terrifying.
well, it just, because the irony is the product's going to iterate and change so much anyway that actually your end product won't be recognizable relative to your beginning product. So it's actually kind of a misnomer that it's a proof of concept of the product, because that won't be the product. It's a
Right.
proof of concept of you, like, competent enough to run a Kickstarter, which is like a microcosm of a broader sales organization and manufacturing organizations. Like, but that's part of it. It's like, do I have what it takes to do something hard? But yeah, I mean, like, I think the failure thing is just like pure human psychology. And it's just like, for me, I do really well if I put myself between a rock and a hard place and I just like can't fail. Like, it's so devastating to fail that it's just never even an option. Where, like, I quit my job before we ran the Kickstarter, so it actually had to work. And I was willing to do like absolutely anything, like shameful things, to make it work. And I've told this story on a couple other podcasts, but I might as well tell it here. It's a decent one. So I went to Harvard undergrad, and I was living in Boston after college. And at Harvard, they have these things called red books, and you go into the library, the Harvard Library, and it's every alumnus's details. It's like Will Nitze, and then my phone number and my email. It actually has contact information for each person. It has every year. So it has class of 1980, class of whatever. And so I actually just went every day after work. I had a job at the time, and I took pictures of every page of every red book for like decades. And then I found this
Starting
software
to
that,
see where Facebook.
yeah, well, it's like a pathetic version of the Facebook origin story, perhaps the protein bar version. So, and then I found this software that like could extract the email address from all these images, like text to image conversion or image to text conversion. And so I got like, 15,000 emails, some crazy amount of emails. And then my boss went to Harvard Business School, and he just like gave me his login against his better judgment. And I was able to get all the first and last. They don't give you the email address, but it's the same convention. It's like first
Right.
dot last at like HBS, and then the class year like dot edu or whatever. And I figured out a way to get all the first and last names. If you go to their advanced search, you can just do every permutation of like interested in foreign relations and plays tennis, like, and then like, and is from Florida or whatever, and just do every permutation and then dedupe the whole list. And that was like 80,000 email addresses. And the reason I did like the Harvard undergrad and Harvard Business School was it was just like a shameless, like, hey,
We're buddy.
we have
We
this
have
one
common
little
friends.
connection. I was an undergrad class of 14, like, as if that mattered, like, who cares? But that was like my one little linkage. And then I made a MailChimp account, and I just blasted these people. And I'm sure this is like not doable anymore,
I
because
don't even think it's legal to publish this podcast now. Kidding.
Well, I've already told
Totally kidding.
if Harvard was going to come after me, they would have done it already.
Wrong thing.
And this was like 8 years ago. So, I mean,
Too
there was no
tired.
opt-in. I also used my alumni email address because I knew it would ding the like
Oh, yeah.
domain score or whatever, and just ruthlessly spammed people. And of course, got marked as spam a bunch. And then MailChimp shut down my account. And then I feigned ignorance. I was like, oh, I didn't know. Like, and then they said, okay, we'll reinstate it, but like, don't do it again. And then, of course, the next day sent another 10,000 emails. But by the time we got shut down a second time, we had already gotten it all out. And I think we drove like $1,000 of sales just through that. And that was free. Like that was the other kind of key thing is you can run paid ads and whatnot, but it's all going to cost money. And I was interested in things that would drive a lot of sales and be free. And there just aren't that many of those. So anyway, point being, like, I did shameless things to make that work.
And were you driving those people to your Kickstarter, or by then you were launched and that was going to your site?
No, that was all to the Kickstarter.
That was all to the Kickstarter. Wow.
Yeah. And then we rolled out a site there, shortly thereafter, and some percentage of the Kickstarter backers rebought on our site, and then we were moving. And then we started running paid ads and what. But it's like things that work for D2C don't really work for Kickstarter. Like, no, it's very, very hard to convert someone on a Facebook ad of, hey, I might buy this thing that's like kind of pricey and I like won't give it to you for 6 months. That's not a good selling point. It's a miracle, the whole crowdfunding thing. I don't know why anyone backs anything. It's just crazy to me, but thank God they do.
But they did, and they do. Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, so I mean, the best scrappy beginner story of all time. Fast forward to, I want to hear. I don't know if you're gonna humor me, but like, what's a shameless story? But at the like now we're in retail level. Like, what's that that version? But for like a $2 million.
I mean, there were definitely moments early on where we would, shall we say, influence pilots. You have a pilot, X number of stores, 10 stores, and let's see how you do. It's like, well, I know how I'm going to do because I'm going to make sure I do well.
I know.
So yeah, there were definitely some moments like that early on.
When we launched in I have another Target story, but when we launched in Target, I went to my local Target and my husband was with me. We work together, so he's like, he knows exactly what the unit economics are. And I was like, we should buy all of these. And he's like, are you insane? I'm like, absolutely not. We should buy all of them. He wouldn't let me do it. Yeah.
Well, think of the payoff. I mean, it's like, why, how could you not? And then that leads to a X number of $1 million PO. It's like, yeah, you'd be a fool not to, like, unless of course you thought,
puts you two in touch.
Yeah. Unless you thought we will fail on the back end. Right. So like, it is true that you don't want to do something that then leads to a bigger outcome. And then that bigger outcome whacks you in the face in some way. Like, because you're going to get charged back or like bad stuff's going to happen. So you have to believe, oh, this is going to work in the event that I do get this distribution opportunity. But yeah, in terms of getting the opportunity in the first place, yeah, I mean, we will do almost anything.
Almost anything. I brought my baby to a Target meeting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was a questionable choice. We did get the PO though. But now I'll never know. Was it the product or the kid?
That doesn't matter. Take the win.
Gotta live with that mystery. Okay, so we were talking about supply chain at the beginning and sort of like skipping the steps between making a batch of something in your kitchen and working with a co-man. And I want to ask a really early stage question around the original formulation, because you've got this idea, right? And the idea is around, mind body protein. I'm probably totally botching it, but it's somewhere
not even protein. It was just brain food. That was the original idea. Like, oh, what if we made a bar out of things that were highest in compounds shown to benefit the brain? Like, that was it.
So this isn't like you're making granola in your kitchen and like your neighborhood loves it, so they tell you to like go make more granola and then you should sell it at the trade, at the farmer's market. This is like, we're convicted that there is a demand for brain nutrition that's being unmet in the market. Is it kind of coming from more that paradigm? And then you start to formulate from there?
Yeah, and predicted is a generous term. I would say I had this idea. I had zero data that it was, I mean, there was certainly demand for, your brain to work better via consumption of whatever, bulletproof coffee
Yeah.
or supplements or what, like, of course, people want their brain to work better. There was zero data that anyone wanted that out of a protein bar or a bar, a nutrition bar. I mean, because like function, one of the main things I've like learned is function is extremely form factor dependent. So, like
Mhm.
for instance, no one likes to eat caffeine, but that's kind of weird. Like, why? Like everyone likes caffeine. Like, why do we just drink caffeine? I don't know why, but that just is what it is. And if you try to fight that, like you'll almost certainly lose.
Mm.
So it's just, it is very like function is very form factor dependent. So the brain thing, very well, the case could have been, and actually to some degree, the case was people do prefer that via supplementation and drinks versus ready to eat food. But again, that's just like, that was like our starting point. And then we, yeah, iterated many
Level
times
up
on
from
that.
there. So you skip to a co-man, right? And
Yep.
then you roll it all the way back during COVID. Tell us that story.
What do you mean roll it all back?
Well, like you pulled, at least as I understand it, you pulled a bunch of supply chain in-house.
Yes. Well, yeah. So that was totally out of necessity. So that at that point we were doing, I think, $1 million that year, which was like, call it whatever, 5 million bars, 5, 6 million bars. So, not low volume, but not super high volume. And at the time we were turnkey. So, turnkey is basically just your co-packer does everything. They buy all the inputs and they make the thing, and then they send you a bill for the cost per bar times the number of the bars they made for you. And inherent to that is almost always a material markup fee, meaning they're making a margin on the almonds they buy, in addition to making a margin on the labor to produce that finished good. So, I mean, that's like, I think most people do that. And it's definitely nice from an administrative standpoint because you just do less. But the downside is when there's a global pandemic, you're absolutely screwed. And the lady who, buys the stuff, who like types with one finger, and is not going to do what it takes to get almonds on a rail car tomorrow when you desperately need them by Friday. Like that is just not going to happen. And when there's a global pandemic, it just so happens that there's a strike at the rail yard and you can't get the almonds on the rail car, and 10 other things happen. It was truly the most gnarly operational experience in my life by far. It was just, you couldn't get anything. You couldn't get cardboard, things you
Yeah.
assume, how could you ever not get that? You couldn't get it. And so it was just such a crisis moment that we were like, okay, we just have to take everything in house because we need to be like making stuff happen ourselves, because if you can't make product, you don't have a company. So, and the other thing is like, if you have 50 inputs, all it takes is not having one, and you can't make the
Right.
thing. So you have to shoot lights out. You have to get all 50 there. So yeah, it was just, we did it because we had to. Now it turns out that was the best thing that could have happened to us long term, because we were forced to get really, really good at the things that really no one focuses on in CPG, or at least are very under focused on, in my opinion, which is supply chain and manufacturing. Like, it sounds funny because CPG inherently you're manufacturing stuff, but people are like, oh yeah, let me give the idea to this third party and then they'll make it. It's like, no, you really have to just like be there, tell them exactly how to make it, iterate with them. Like, it's as if you're making it, and
Yeah.
and there's 10 ways to slice and dice your supply chain, and that's the difference of like 20 points of margin, or
Yeah.
crazy swings in margin. So we not only like did what it took to get all the inputs to the facilities, but also we learned how to get better pricing, how to contract on things, how to mitigate risk in other ways, how to ship everything in truckloads versus LTL. Like that, there's so many efficiencies we drive. Still today we're driving new efficiencies. I mean, you can order an input in a pail. You can also order it in a tote, and you can also order it in a drum.
Right.
And then you can put those things in different configurations on a truck, or you can put them on a rail car, right? And then at the co-packer level, you can like pump those things in, or you can dump them in. Like, most people are like, oh, your almond butter is almond butter, right? And it's like, no,
Right.
actually there's 10 different ways to do that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, in fact, speaking of my own book, that's the fun of it all. It's just like this infinite Lego game of like, how can I how can I like configure all of these different inputs to get the right output? When do I accept that the output should change over time versus like dig in that I don't want it to change over time? I think that folks that outsource all of that miss a lot of the terrifying joy in building because it is I mean, having to manage that many inputs is it's really hard. Probably takes like a really big college degree.
Actually, none of it's hard. Like none of it's technically hard.
It's
It's all
complex.
just
Yeah.
yeah, it's complex and it's hard in aggregate.
Yes,
But
it's all, and you're really right. It's only hard in aggregate. Like making phone calls, a phone call is really easy. And a lot of
yep.
supply chain is phone calls. Even today, it's phone calls and emails and talking to people. And
But also I think a lot of people don't actually know what's possible. So they don't actually know
yeah,
what levers they can pull. Like the pail versus drum versus tote thing, right? I actually think a lot of people, myself included, until I did know it, just didn't know that that was even a thing. Because they're like, oh, I was quoted in pails, like then I buy in pails. I wouldn't even know to be like, oh, could I get that in a drum? Could I get that in a tote? Like until I think, we were at the co-packer and the co-packer was like, you could get these in totes. And I was like, whoa, like
yeah,
that wasn't even on my radar. So a lot of it's just, I think entrepreneurs don't actually know the menu of possibilities to drive
vocabulary.
efficiencies.
Yeah. I mean, that was true for me too, building my own tech stack. Like, I just didn't know the menu. I'm like, I don't have the words for this. I just know that I need a thing that like makes sure that when, a retailer says I want 3,000, but not for 3 months from now, I better not sell that. Or I better have more coming if I want to sell some of them. As like a forecasting tool. Like, I don't know. Sounds about right to me. But yeah, I think that so much of this is really just like starting to understand the vocabulary of it. And to be building in this era is really such a delight because LLMs can provide so much of that. And that when probably early when you were building and certainly when I was building, because I'm unfortunately a little older, like it just the tools weren't there. When I started, like the internet was pretty immature still. And finding stuff was really hard. And my resources were like government documentation. Like that's reading the whole thing. And I think that a better appreciation of just like if you know the words, you can make the magic incantation. But if you don't have that, have to have the spell book. And if you don't have the spell book, it's really hard to be like, punching your hand through the magical wall of like resistance.
And by the way, I think a lot of this stuff is really, really mostly relevant at scale.
Mm,
Like I think there is such a thing as over optimizing from the 0 to 1 phase. And I just don't think you should. Like your goal from 0 to 1 is confirm you have product market fit and get to scale. And then once you're at scale, let's just say means 30 million units a year, which by the way should roughly coincide with profitability, like
mm,
turning the corner on that. Then that menu presents itself. That menu is actually not really a thing pre-scale. So even if I knew I could buy in, drums well, they're just not going to sell it to me because I'm not that interesting to that vendor and blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. And by the way, I shouldn't be focusing on that anyway. I should be focusing on getting to scale. So I think there's a pre and post scale sort of rubric you should apply to operations. And now we're like post scale. And so I think a lot about this stuff, but I'd be lying if I told you I thought a lot about it, in year 2, let's say.
Yeah. Well, reflecting on sort of what I've read about your product strategy, I can make ties down to this part of how your brain works. In that like you're at the intersection of a bunch of different motivations. Maybe I could call them trends, but I don't want to trivialize them, but like consumer needs, brain health and plant protein and having a clean label and keto, which might be a trend, but low sugar, which is certainly like broadly probably the right thing for us, and like that's less arguable. So you've got like this diverse,
Yep.
I've heard you say that like diversified stock portfolio represented inside the product itself. But
Yep.
what I'm hearing is that is really probably how your brain works too, is like you've got like a multifaceted approach to the right ingredients, both at the product level and at the business level.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's a common misconception about entrepreneurs is that they're risk takers. We're actually risk mitigators for the most part. Like, yes, you take that original binary risk. I'm going to quit my job and do this thing. But from the moment you start, you're actually, most of my day is mitigating a risk, which in the primary mechanism to do that is diversifying everything. Like our company is a platform. Like we make bars, but we also make hydration and coffee, and we're moving into a new product line that's going to be huge. That's also in the food realm, but will further diversify. And then there's like diversification at the supply chain level. Don't just have one supplier of X input, have two at least. And then there's diversification at the manufacturing level. And then there's diversification at the fulfillment level. And a huge one is channel diversification. That being said, you also need, in my experience, to make some big, I would say like the one place where we actually don't try to mitigate risk and we take really, really big swings is on retail channels. Like
Yeah.
we take really big swings because the ratio that matters most to us is energy and revenue out. We apply that to everything. How much energy does it take? How much revenue can it spit out? And so ticky tacky, two-store chain, whatever, that's a pretty bad energy and revenue out. Whereas a giant retailer, well, that's actually really favorable energy and revenue out, but it's very risky, right? So I would say I mitigate risk in like 8 out of 10 areas, and then we take really big calculated bets primarily on the go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
So it's balancing those two things.
And wholesale for you is like a big, I mean, all that those big swings are paying off. You've got like from what I read, a really balanced kind of channel mix. And do you have any, I don't know, like the hardest lessons in winning in retail? Like take a big swing.
I think you have to, I mean, it depends on what your goal is for the company, right? So my goal for our company is how do we make the biggest possible company? That's not everyone's goal for the company because
Mm.
that's actually really not great in many ways and creates tons of headaches. You know, there are people who want to build a $20 million company. And for me, it's like, I want to build a $200 million company. So that's just like fundamentally you're going to take different paths and make different decisions based on that. But let's just assume you want to build a $200 million company. Well, so now that just means that like you may, and probably were niching down early. And that just by definition means you have to open your aperture of your addressable market at some point, meaning you have to create something that's very broadly appealing to many, many, many people and quite broadly appealing to a variety of retailers. And so like part of that, quite frankly, is just price. It just is, especially now. And I think it'll move more into, I think price will get more and more and more important. The consumer is getting more and more tapped out. And so value is getting more and more important. And so that's super germane to what we've been talking about, which is ops, which enables you to price really sharply. But also it comes down to like your positioning. Am I a premium product or am I a value product? And we actually have moved more into we're a value product, which maybe people are surprised by that. I don't know, but because it's a functional, bar and hydration mix and coffee and so on. And so you might think, oh, that's premium. No, actually, no, we're trying to figure out how could we price as sharply as possible because that one variable alone opens up retailers. We would not be able to win in, let's say, the club channel if we couldn't be operationally excellent and thus price really low and thus hit a really low pallet price or on shelf price. So I just think price is like, I would think your question was around like hard fought lessons. Price sits at the center of many of our hard fought lessons. And like what random example at Walmart, he priced $1 lower per multi count for multi pack. And velocity went up like 35%. Like it was like a dramatic lift because we got below, I think like a 6 handle. And that was just such a learning for me. I was like, whoa, we didn't change anything. We just changed price. We didn't change it that much, but we moved way more product. And I think most people focus on, I don't know, being premium or being flashy or having pastel colors or like all this other stuff. And it's like, well, have you looked really, really, really hard just at value, just at price? And then price pack architecture, which is like sort of adjacent to price. So you're voluntarily, I think if you're doing it right, you're voluntarily creating tons of operational headaches for yourself, but you're
Yeah.
unlocking a lot of retail distribution and success if you can have fundamentally different offers by retailer. So we have an 18 count at Costco and we have a 12 count variety pack at Sam's and we have that same 12 count variety at BJ's, and then we have different 12 counts online, and then we have 4-packs at
Yeah.
Walmart and Target. And just there's such a wide array of ways we merchandise, and that's a giant operational headache, right? That's kind of sucks to exist in, but it allows you to be in all of those, serve each of those retailers exactly how they want to be
Yeah.
served, price exactly what is going to work at that retailer. So I guess that would be the other thing, is just price pack architecture, and managing channel conflict is like
Oh man.
something people should obsess over.
Obsess over. Yeah, it's a whole it's a whole product, really. We used to, and I built a bundling product around this because to achieve the same goal. And our stuff was like a little more difficult to configure because we were working with, something that costs at wholesale, say $6-7 a piece. And so all of a sudden it's like, well, you add 5 or 6 of those things together, and it's hard to be flexible when the choice is between 60 and $70, and 40 is an impossibility. But same game, like we had the advantage of color, which was our version of flavor, say, where we could really configure like different SKUs, different colors, different counts, and built, like an extraordinary, it was at first a spreadsheet and then a program bundle configurator that allowed us to present a different offering. For us, primarily, it was online channel where we were doing this, and like every single digital channel, we avoided the race to the bottom. We were trying to be premium, and so we really had to defend our price like all of the time, all the time. And the way that we did it was with just like this monstrous program that managed the availability of every different possible virtual bundle that we could put on like all of the kind of big box.coms that drop ship.
That's the other thing, by the way, like that I think is really, really, really tough, but also if you can figure it out, is a great unlock, is the e-com to retail dichotomy is so stark. Oftentimes you can build this great premium brand online, and it's just not going to scale. Like it may or may not scale to retail. And so that's like this big like chasm you have to cross. And then it's like, ooh, do we how much value to e-com are we going to offer in Target, let's say,
Right.
or whatever? And that's a really scary like jump, I think, for a lot of people. And some people just don't make the jump. They're just like, we're a D2C company, and that allows us to price premium, and we're cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's scary too when there is so much more inflexibility at retail once you're in a single channel. And what I mean to say is like you've made an agreement with the person. The person's the buyer. The buyer has a budget and it's being allocated to you, and you're signing contracts. It's not as cute as, you know what, this week on my D2C site, I'm going to experiment with like, I don't know, 10% discounting or a BOGO offer, or like literally manipulating the price because, oh, that takes me 45 seconds inside Shopify. You can't do any of that. And so the latency in what you can learn and how fast you can adapt to it just balloons. And so you have to be really much more thoughtful and careful ahead of time. And
So why I tell everyone that they should start online. Like you should do all that iteration online, get to the answer,
right.
and then plug that answer into retail. But also another thing that was a big learning for me, that it just maybe should have occurred to me but just didn't, was when you build a big online business, especially on Amazon, because it's public facing and all the numbers are sort of ascertainable,
Yeah.
of like, is this moving a lot of units and whatnot. If you build a big online business, like retail comes to you, which is crazy. And you wouldn't like Walmart, for example, emailed us, and we're like, whoa, like people will spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years just emailing Walmart and not getting in. And then they just emailed us, right? So it's the order of operations allows you to go way quicker because it's a pull versus a push.
I mean, and ultimately that buyer, although with a much bigger budget, is like almost any other customer. They need a number of impressions. They need some social proof. They need to have an appreciation and an affinity for brand, or at least be, if not personally, sort of institutionally directed toward those affinities. And yeah, but they just have a huge wallet. Your fate's in their hands. It's so much more fun when the power dynamic starts to switch. And I don't know if there was a moment in time for you where you felt that, but I definitely remember the day where I was like, oh, the winds are changing. And all of a sudden, when I introduce myself, people know what the brand, I mean, who that guy am, but like they've seen the brand. Brand
Yeah.
marketing did its job. 7 years later,
Yes.
and I got a lot of O's instead of ha's. I had this experience at a trade show really early on. See, this was year 2 or 3 of operating, and we had, we kind of created a category. We popularized a category, which was all single piece silicone spatulas, and they were so easy to rip off. It'd be like if you had invented a packaged protein bar and then like Cliff Bar, right? Cliff Bar basically like
Yeah.
championed that category.
Yeah.
And then there's a million. So it was such a fascinating experience. We like made this moment, and then the moment consumed us, and we were carried along with the rising tide. And so like I think it was in year 2, and I'm at a trade show, and like, so now there's some knockoffs out there and there's some other people selling the same stuff that, 2 booths down or whatever. Buyer walks up to me and she's like, so tell me what your KSPs are. And I was just so mad. I'm like, lady, I don't know what to tell you. Like, she's like, your pricing is a little higher. I'm like, what? It's a bootstrap. At that point, it's like, this is a bootstrap, basically family business. Like, yes, my pricing is higher. Like, but yeah, just those like moments of amusement. And like that's what I think maybe gives you, like you were talking about at the beginning, that just like must survive, like by the skin of my teeth and with my fingernails so dug into the floor. Like, we are going to make this work because we have to make it work, despite now being the smallest fish in a pond that we basically like fueled with trout.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will get too dogmatic or emotional or romantic about their product and not, like, let's say a category manager comes to you and they say, "Well, I need you to be at X." And then you might be like, "Well, it's not going to happen. Like I'm at Y and we're a premium brand." And that's like fine and well, right? Again, this is why I say it depends on what your goal with the company is. But we actually take every piece of feedback like that in, and we say, okay, what if we were at what they said? Well, we need to do XYZ. We need to drive these efficiencies in ops, and we need to reduce costs here. And what would the payoff of that be? Well, the payoff would be we get this much distribution and this much revenue and blah, blah, blah. And I think just being open to like everything it's led us to, it's made a much bigger company at the end of the
Yeah.
day, because it's forced us to figure out how we could make something work. But like one example would be just like going into mass or club earlier. A lot of people think, oh, you can't do that until you're in year 6. And it's like, actually, the reality is if you do A, B, C, and D, you could do it in year 3. And it's like, that's a huge difference. And that meant that you didn't have to raise that incremental fundraising round, which meant that you didn't have to dilute yourself another 15% and blah, 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 blah. Because you just like forced yourself to figure out how you could make it work 3 years earlier. Because there's always a way. There's always a way. You might have to compromise on a couple things here and there. You might have to change your vision for what the product is. That, for example, they might come to me and say, well, we don't want you to emphasize the brain nutrient piece. Like, oh, we just want a protein bar. And it's like, if I was precious about my positioning, I would just say, no, it has to be this. Versus, okay, what if we really just hammed up the plant protein piece of the product
Mm.
and the fiber piece of the product, and in this channel, and then in this other channel, we hammed up the brain nutrient piece. And like that unlocks so much where, so I just think a lot of people are too precious about their brand and their positioning and whatnot. And really what matters is what works.
Right. Right. Especially if the goal is to build a big company.
Yeah. If that's your goal. If
If
that's
that's
your
your
goal.
goal. Yeah. This has been such a rad conversation. I'm so glad to be getting to know you. And your story is just amazing. You could have, gone any direction with this, and building, like just healthy fuel for bodies is like such a good place to apply your brain and emissions. Thanks for coming and having a chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you at Costco.
Sounds good.
All right. That was fun. Thank you very much. Hey, I have a thing for you. Do you have a couple more minutes?
Sure.
Are you familiar with Tusol sort of protein bars?
No.
See, let me find the website for you.
How do
I
you
think
spell it?
Tusol, Tusol wellness.com. It caught my eye in part because as I was on your site before we got on, and you've got Thomas Keller on there, and gosh, who's her
Yeah. Huh. for
Michelin
a
star.
3 Michelin star chef. That's cool.
So Chris Costo. So this founder is looking for a backup plan. I don't know if is remotely something that makes, they're very small. The revenue is very small.
What does that mean, a backup plan?
She's shutting down.
Okay. That's a lovely euphemism.
She's trying not to shut down. She's looking for a backup plan.
Looking for a lifeline.
And in my, one of the hats I wear is distressed consumer investing. I buy and turn around, or try to turn around distressed consumer brands, but I haven't done anything in CPG.
God bless you. That sounds hard.
It's hard in like the good way. It's hard in the good way. But yeah,
It's a
it's hard.
cool. So who's the chef? Who's the
Chris Costow, who did like
that is?
the MoMA restaurant, and then I think he did a restaurant called Costow in New York.
Got it.
But I caught my eye because I had been talking to her a couple of months ago, and she was looking for. I'm not the right person for her for a couple of reasons, which probably don't bear going into. But one of which is like I'm a little more hard goods than CPG, and I guess so. I will go into it. The second of which is usually when I make an acquisition, I look for in a space. I look for a platform like a cornerstone acquisition. And she was so small, so she can't be my first CPG acquisition. I got to make like a $20 million acquisition, distressed brand, and then I can layer smaller brands on top. And I've done that in housewares, but I haven't done that in CPG. So it's just her timing is off relative to my strategy. And so I was trying to think of folks that I could connect her to. And then I saw Thomas Keller as I was scrolling below the fold on your site. And I thought, maybe, or even just as a sounding board for her, you'd be a cool person.
It's crazy how I've had so many of these conversations with these brands, because it's almost impossible to win in food and beverage. Like it is almost impossible. And so the vast majority at some point they come around and they're like, shit, I can't exit. And so they're like, let me see if I can merge. And this was especially true in 2022, and like fundraising dried up. And so I would be getting like a call every week of like, hey, we're XYZ, even from brands doing $25 million a
Yeah.
year. Like, and they're like, we're going to go under, like, do you want to merge? And so we've like thought about this like a lot, cause it's like, you can pick up these brands for like nothing.
Yeah.
But then it's like, what do you do with it? And is it actually it's adding a lot of like logistical headaches. And is it accreting any value to like your enterprise? Because whoever's ever buying you doesn't really care about that. And
Yeah.
it's just very, very hard. Unless it was like an ingredient supplier that would like boost our gross margin, or they had a manufacturing plant that then we could manufacture it, like something like that. But just buying a small brand, unfortunately, is just not in the cards for us, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I figured I will. Actually, I haven't heard from her in a couple of weeks, but I was trying to connect the dots for it, but I'm in agreement. It's just like this is the right thing to do. Is be like, darn, I wish something else had. I wish this had worked, but since it didn't, let's just move on quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it again.
You wouldn't do IQ again?
Glad I did, but I wouldn't do it again.
What are you gonna do next?
Something in CPG, but like more on the data side, probably.
Yeah.
Like I've learned a lot in terms of like actually a really useful thing to look at is just like, where do we spend money? Just like look at our P&L and like, where do we dump a bunch of money that is high margin? And data's a really big one. Like we spend a lot of money on data, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Wow. On what? Like warehousing or
No, like retail
analytics?
data, like
Dat data. Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah. But yeah, because we don't spend a crazy amount on software. We don't have an ERP, still operate off QuickBooks.
Call
But yeah,
me.
we spend a lot of money on data. So I just think it's really interesting.
I have so much respect that you don't have an ERP yet. Like, which is why I'm building the anti-ERP. I'm like, please keep QuickBooks. There's nothing wrong with it. If you're good at spreadsheets, that's also great. If you need something that's more structured, come buy my thing. But yeah,
We did a failed NetSuite implementation.
Oh yeah?
And it was horrific. We just pulled the
How
plug
much
on
did
it.
that cost?
This was like years ago. It was really because was more naive, and like I tried to hire like adults in the room, quote unquote. And
Yeah.
so I hired this guy who was like had been a whatever ops director at Quest Nutrition, and he came in and he's like, yeah, I really think you guys need NetSuite because that's what we ran at Quest, and here's how we would do it. And I was like, oh damn, this guy sounds like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And then we got into it and we're like, whoa, this is like a disaster. And we were all spending our time, half our day, with the frickin' NetSuite consultant who we were
Yeah.
paying a ton of money. And then we were just like, this is like gonna take the company down. So we pulled the plug. I don't know how much we spent on it, but we may have wasted like 30 grand on it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be worse.
No, yeah, it was, I think some people waste 300 grand on it, you know?
Yeah. They quoted us 200 and I was like, I'll build it. I'm good. Cool. Well, thank you again. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool to keep in touch.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Is that a crew picture in your upper backdrop above your other side? Yeah.
No.
There's a black and white picture of like, it looks like some sort of athletics.
What, over here?
Yeah.
No, that's like an old picture of Morristown, New Jersey, where I'm from.
Oh, all right. Well, say hello to New Jersey for me. For some reason, and
I
it's
did
like,
row crew. I did crew in high school and never did it again because it's masochistic. But
it is masochist. I did it in college.
okay, nice.
And yeah, spent too
The
much.
erg though, I maintain the erg is the best machine in the whole gym. Like that's the best full body workout you can do.
Yeah, a lot of bang for the buck and fewer calluses on an erg.
Yes.
Slightly fewer.
Cool.
Cool. All right, we'll talk soon.
Alrighty. Take care.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.